So what I would like is to have the young people here ask me some questions about anything you have in mind about your identity, about issues you have, about how to handle being different. So I would like some questions. Anyone? What do you like about Bal Vihar? What are some of the things you run into school? Yes, please. Say it again.
If everyone was the same, wouldn't that make it easier for everyone else to understand it?
Very nice question. So I'll repeat the question. If everyone in the world is the same, then wouldn't it make it easier for people to understand one another? A very, very important question. You see, apple is also got similar things to orange. They're both round, they both got vitamin C, they both grow on a tree, they're both eaten by human beings. So there are some things that are same and some things that are different. So if you ask, is a bicycle the same as a car? One could say that they both got wheels, they both made of metal, they both go on a road, they both ways of transporting. So there are some similar things also. So in the same way, between you and the person sitting next to you, there's many same things. But there's also different things. And between one culture and another culture, there's many same things and also different things. Now, we must understand both. We must understand how we are the same, because how we are the same are things we share, and how we are different is very important to understand in our philosophy. In our philosophy, the one manifests as the many. So, when the one manifests as the dog, and as the cat, and as the tree, and as the bird, and as the clouds, at a certain level it is one. In the ultimate reality it is one. But in the reality that is the one where we are dealing with things in daily life, it is a cat, it is a dog, it is a bird, it is a cloud, it is a plant. So the one has taken on many forms, many rupa, many shapes and forms. And so the appreciation of this diversity is an appreciation of the Leela, the play, the divine play of the one. So the one is, in a sense, enacting as many. So now what is your name? Gokul. So let's say Gokul acts as a certain character in a play. Right? So there is Gokul, and then there is this character that you have become. But while the audience thinks you are that character, but you know you are really Gokul. Correct? You are Gokul, but you are talking like a certain character that they told you to be. So you are pretending to be that character. So now if you are character number one, you are talking like that character. And then in another scene, they tell you that you are now going to be playing the role of a different character. So now Gokul is character number two in that scene. Correct? But it's the same Gokul who is enacting as many different characters. Suppose you have. So in the same way, there is Brahm, there is one who is enacting, and this is the Leela, this is the play, enacting as many different things. So when we appreciate the difference between this thing and that thing and this person and that person, it is not at all seen as a problem. It is a very profound thing that it is actually the purpose of the universe. Because after all, if the one were not performing and becoming many, then there really wouldn't even be a universe. Then there'd just be one. There wouldn't be so many different things. The philosophies which don't understand this, which feel that the tiger and this dog and the cat and the bird and the plant and the rock are somehow ultimately separate things, and there is no unifying thing joining them, that there is no unity underneath, they would think, yeah, there is a problem, there is this tension, and they don't know how to resolve it or why it's happening. See, so for our philosophy, the difference is part of the way the cosmos has been made. After all, skin colors are different, for different people because of the geographical circumstances. Those who come in places with a lot of snow may not get enough sun and their skin is lighter. And those who come from places with a lot of sun, a lot of warm temperature, their skin may be darker. So the part of this world, the way the world has manifested, the way the world has been made, is not uniform. England is not the same place as Sahara Desert, and North India is not the same as South India, and so on. So different geographies are part of the world, and they produce different climates, they produce different kinds of food which people eat. And so the human beings have evolved in different ways. So there's not a problem, it is just the way things are. So similarly, their experiences and their cultures and their histories are also different. They've come out from different kinds of historical backgrounds. Now the question is, if we want to, the problem with saying let's forget the difference and only worry about what's the same is as follows. First, if you are denying the difference, you're denying something which is part of the reality. So you're better off being realistic and accepting. You're better off saying, apple is not the same as an orange. It is not a problem. It is not something that I can tamper with, because that's the way it has been made. So similarly, I am how I am, and you can tell your friend who's from a different background that, look, I respect you as who you are, and you respect me as who I am, and that way we are accepting the reality. The second issue is, if somebody asks me, let's be the same, then I can say, am I supposed to be the same as you, or are you supposed to be the same as me? There's a difference. So that's a problem in this very commonly held view which a lot of people teach, that let's all be same. The first thing you should ask is same on whose terms? Who defines the gold standard? What I advocate is difference with mutual respect. Difference with mutual respect. Now, difference with mutual respect is very, very different than tolerance. When you ask people who are from the Abrahamic religions, what is your posture, what is your position on people who are from different faiths? They will say, most of the time they will say, we believe in tolerance. But I respond that tolerance is quite insulting. I mean, imagine someone sitting next to you saying, I tolerate you to sit next to you. It's something wrong with you. Alright? I mean, the idea is something wrong with you, I tolerate you to sit there. Very patronizing. Imagine your teacher saying, I tolerate you sitting in class. Something wrong. Or imagine at home your parents saying, I tolerate you to sit and have dinner with me. There's something wrong with you. So the reason they are saying tolerance is because they have this idea that I'm exclusively right, others must be therefore wrong, but I will put up with them. I'm kind enough to put up with them. Now, what I have argued for is that we should scratch out the word tolerance in our interfaith discussions and introduce the word mutual respect. Mutual respect means you are different, I'm different, but I respect you for whatever you believe and whatever you do. But mutual means you must do the same for me. It is not one way. I also want you to respect. Now, it may seem like a very simple change for people to adopt mutual respect, but they have a very hard time adopting mutual respect, because then the exclusivity cannot be claimed. They cannot claim that they are the only one who is right. See what I'm saying? So this very simple question you asked about why is difference important can be discussed at length in a big way, and that is what this whole book is discussing, these very issues. But thank you for that question. So we should wrap up. It's amazing how a child can ask a very honest and very profound question. And that's a question that is at the heart of this whole book I'm doing. It took me 20 years to answer that question. Yeah, really think about it. Because wouldn't life be simpler if everybody was sane? But then you would not have Leela, you wouldn't have the cosmos, you wouldn't have you wouldn't have the Karma Kshetra and the Dharma Kshetra where things are happening. There's a choice between right and wrong, it's not the same. There is vivek, there is discrimination between different gunas. So the whole divine play is play between differences. And if there were no differences, there would be no need for a Mahabharata. There would be no people saying, okay, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, we are one family. That is true. But in the family, you have many kind of different people. You have different personalities. My elder brother and younger brother relationship is different. With brother and sister relationship is different. Mother and father relationship is different. So even in your own family, while it is one family, there are different relationships. And if you are a teacher, you don't treat every student the same way, in the sense that there are some who need help, some are further along, some are mischievous. You have to, your actions have to factor in the uniqueness and distinctiveness of each. And the Kauravas and Pandavas were part of the same family also. They were also part of the Vasudeva Kutumba. In fact, common parent, one parent. And Devas and Asuras are also part of the same family. And not only all human beings, but even animals, even plants and little bacteria. When you take an antibiotic, you're killing those billions of bacteria. They're part of the Vasudeva Kutumbakam. So the argument that there is Vasudeva Kutumbakam does not mean that we become irresponsible and cannot discriminate between right and wrong and one kind of personality versus another. In the Karma Kshetra, in the Kurukshetra is not just in Haryana. I travel to my village in Punjab, my town, birthplace in Punjab, quite frequently every year. And so I see Kurukshetra. But now the modern Kurukshetra is the whole world. There's a global Kurukshetra where there's many interactions and discourse and things going on. And you have to, like Arjuna, you have to be skillful in understanding this Kurukshetra and doing the right thing. So while everyone, all living beings are part of the one family, and certainly so, but you still have your responsibility to understand and differentiate and conduct yourself accordingly. So the reason I wrote Being Different is because particularly the several audiences, the audience of our own Vedantins and Hindus and people who are practicing Dharma, Buddhists, different kinds of denominations and schools of Dharma, that audience is one of the audiences. And there the message is that there has been a tendency in the last 100 years to avoid dealing with differences and focus exclusively on the ultimate oneness. The point is that the ultimate oneness is not the current state of consciousness we are in. We, because of prarabdha, karma, are born into a world of differentiation, and we have to perform our role. The fact that ultimately everything is one, you could argue that therefore poison is the same thing as prasad, medicine. So why not, instead of having a medicine or having prasad, why not eat poison? It is the same. And the point is that in the world at which we live, the level of consciousness at which we live, there is difference, and there is relay, discrimination between right and wrong, dharma and adharma. And to sort of pretend that this is not there, because in the ultimate reality it's not there, is a sort of a cop-out. You cannot escape responsibility. This is what Arjuna is trying to do in the beginning of the Gita. He's giving all these arguments why he doesn't want to get involved. He's giving these arguments, and it takes a while for Sri Krishna to convince him and talk to him about the fact that at the level he is, in this Kurukshetra, in this Karma Kshetra, in this Dharma Kshetra, there is need for action, there is difference between Dharma and Adharma. So when we are talking about differences, we are not talking about the ultimate reality being one. We are saying the ultimate reality manifests as many. And so the one becoming the many means that we, because of our prarabdha, because of our past karma, we have taken birth, and a particular form, very different from somebody else's form, very different from somebody else's prarabdha, exists and has to understand this reality
has to understand its Swadharma and perform it. So the world in which we have to function, carry out our dharma, is a world of differences. We have to know these differences, otherwise we can be irresponsible. And always cite, you see, I come across so many people who, when it's time to do something responsible, to serve a higher cause, a convenient escape is that ultimately it's all one, so why should I bother? So, like, I have a friend who says, the reason Indians have apathy and don't get involved necessarily and do all these things like others do is because, we are so detached. So I say to him, listen, when it's time to buy a house, you are negotiating the right price. You're not detached. When it's time to sell a car, you're not worrying about whether it's the right price or not. When it's time to be healthy, to get your kids into the right college, you're really concerned about results. So when it's selfish, you are attached. And only when it's time to serve a higher cause, it's easy to cop out by saying it's all one and we don't have to worry about it and so on. So therefore this escape into the one is often an irresponsible thing. It's often a kind of hypocrisy. There was a leading industrialist, I won't name, but he was very prominent in Hindu circles. He would go around getting a lot of leaders organized and fly them in their private jet and really championing. And one day he was giving a talk in which he was talking like this. When it was time to sort of do something for the bigger cause, he would say that it doesn't matter, everything is mithya and everything is maya, it doesn't matter. So we were having breakfast in his house, so I said, but suppose your chief financial officer comes to you and says, we lost 90% of our income, 90% of our market share, but so what? We just lost 1 or 2 shunyas in the end. It's only shunya, it's only mithya, and we're just sitting here eating our lunch. We are able to eat lunch, we have food in our belly, why do you worry? I mean, what would you think of that? And he said, well, I would fire this guy. So I said, yeah, but then to you, when it comes to your own interest, these differences matter. And you are attached to these differences. It is in the personal sense, in the personal ego that you're supposed to give up these differences, because you're doing these things for your own sake. However, when you're doing it without the rewards coming to you, when you're doing it for a cause, for society, for dharma, that is where you should be more active, and because it's not for yourself. So this business of not worrying about differences between us and other alternative worldviews is sometimes something of a mirage and quite misleading, because it's a cop-out. If you look at our traditional training of Vedantins, a technique called Purva Paksha is used. Purva Paksha is the debate with other viewpoints, other schools of thought, Buddhists, Mimamsa, and so on. And the debate with the others is very important, because it helps you understand what they are saying, where they're coming from, and you have to give a response from your own siddhanta, from your own point of view, and these debates sharpen the positions of both sides. And so you cannot go on saying it doesn't matter and everybody's saying whatever everybody's saying amounts to the same thing. That is kind of running away from the issues of difference. So our tradition has never been afraid of difference. Debates have been there to talk about differences. And so to understand difference between our view and other alternative views is not something undharmic, un-Hindu, un-Indian, but very much our way, very much our style. Now in the old days, the difference that was emphasized was with Buddhists, because they were the ones who were predominant around, and so differentiating, clarifying our idea of Atman and their idea of Atman and why they felt there is no such thing and we felt there is. Those debates are very important. But today, the Buddhists are not the big issue. Today you have Judeo-Christianity, you have Islam, you have the Western secularism, you have Marxism. So the Siddhanta that we have to debate are these kind of Siddhanta, or theories. Siddhanta means theories. So the Purva Paksha and the debate we need is with Western thought of various kinds predominantly. And that is what my book is trying to do. It is trying to explain from the dharmic point of view what are the differences between the dharma and the Western system of thought. This idea of being different is not superiority oriented. That's very important. It is not chauvinism. It is just that we are different like anyone else. And every wave of immigrants into this country had to define who they are. The Irish had to define it, the Italians defined it, the East Europeans defined it, Hispanics, African Americans, Jewish people, they all had to define it. And so part of the project of a community and its leaders is to sort of discuss this idea of who are we and how do we present ourselves to the Americans in a way that we are very, very loyal to the country we are in, and at the same time we are bringing some differences. Now, the differences are not only for the benefit of us, but for the nation at large. Because we bring things which are distinct, like everybody else also brings good things which are distinct about their background. And the cover of the book is a Samudra Manthan with the Devas on one side and the Asuras on the back side. It's a photograph I took in Thailand International Airport. There is a carving of Samudra Manthan in the International Airport in Thailand, twice the length of this room. You know, if you, yeah, thank you. Twice the length of this room, so the Devas are on one side as long as this room, and then there is a spindle, and then the same size on the other, you know, same distance on the other side. A huge display called the Samudra Manthan. And so here, in the front is the Devas, and in the back are the Asuras, and the spindle is the deity that is the spindle, and the snake, the famous snake, is the rope that is being pulled. So this is my manthan. The book is a story of my manthan. My manthan with, I won't tell you who's the Asuras, you know. But my manthan, partly my manthan inside, turning inside, partly my manthan with Western thinkers, challenging them from a dharmic point of view. This manthan goes on. And the result of this manthan, Samudra Manthan, is creation of new things, new ideas come, you know. And another manthan with people within the dharma, because you know they are also so fragmented and so opposed to each other. To bring them together is also an effort. So this is a manthan, an external manthan with the West, an internal manthan among the dharma, and a private manthan within myself. It's a story of all of these. And the idea is to explain to you what I think is different. Different about the Dharma are not trivial differences which people can adopt. Like everybody can learn Hindi, or they can learn Tamil, or they can learn to sit on the floor and eat with their hands, and put a banana leaf and eat, and they can eat our food. That's not an irreconcilable difference. It doesn't affect their faith at all if you do this. And some symbolism can be adopted also. But I'm talking about deeply held philosophical axioms, the axioms of our tradition, which are such that the axioms of the other tradition are mutually in contradiction. They cannot be both valid. And this is not a question of who is better or worse, because each system has its axioms, and there is internal consistency in each system. People have figured out how to make it logical and consistent. So we have axioms and a whole system around it, and so do other people. But these axioms are not something that you can interchange. They are different. That is what this book is about. Yesterday, a really smart young boy asked a very important question, you know, like why do we want to be different? What is the benefit of being different? Why not be all the same? A very important question. And actually, that's the very question for the last 15 years, which led to the whole project of doing this book. Now, it may seem that if everything were same, there would be less problems. But you know, if you look at the world, what makes the world what it is, what creates the lila, what creates the diversity is actually differences. If you see how many kinds of fruits there are, how many kinds of trees there are, how many kinds of animals there are, and even within one kind of animal, a dog, there are so many kinds of species, so many breeds of dogs. So diversity and difference is a very character of the cosmos. It's not for us to consider that as a problem. That is the very nature of the cosmos. And the one manifesting as the many is the whole reality. That is the reality. There is the one, but there is also the many. And of course, different systems of thought argue on what's the relationship between the one and the many. But everyone agrees there is the one and there is the many. There is a relationship between them. So, and the idea of difference, that every individual is different. Every individual has got their own nature. Somebody likes a particular field of study, somebody likes something else, you like one kind of music, your brother or sister likes a different kind of music. So this quality is innate in nature, it's innate in human beings, being different. And there's nothing wrong with being different. It's better to appreciate how a particular person is different, distinct. What are my qualities? Where am I good? Where am I weak? Where do I need to help myself and improve? So this idea of my own distinctiveness is a very important thing for us to understand. And every child should, as they grow up, understand what is distinct about themselves, which is the basis of what we call swadharma, my dharma, and my hobbies, my desires, my goals in life, which may be different from someone else. So this idea of being different is very deeply rooted in our Sanskriti, in our culture. And sometimes people are embarrassed of being different because they may have a complex. They may not be able to explain the difference when asked. And if they answer something about their distinctiveness in a way that is considered a source of mockery, or somebody asks for the question they can't answer, then the person gets kind of burnt, having shown their difference, and then they decide next time I will not be different, I will just say I'm same as everybody else. So this is, I call this difference anxiety, the anxiety that I'm different. In one of the things in the first chapter of this book, it's about difference anxiety. The anxiety that I'm different in some respect, whatever it could be. It could be race, gender, language, ethnicity, religion, whatever. And the idea is to say that I'm different, you're different. It's not a question of who's better or worse, we're different. And there should be no anxiety, there should be respect for mutual difference, mutual respect for difference. So, like one fruit is different from another is not a question of one being better than the other, but just that they're different. That's how I approach the idea of difference. If young kids like you are very clear that being different from your schoolmates and from other people is not something you have to hide or feel embarrassed of, but you just are how you are, and you respect them for being how they are, and you want respect for yourself. And if you're able to understand what are the primary areas of difference, then you can articulate better, you can have a sense of identity, and you're not likely to be, thrown off guard. You're not likely to go off track because you're very rooted in who you are. Unfortunately, I come across a lot of our youth who haven't had this kind of benefit of this grounding. The idea of difference has been studied, but from a Western point of view. The West, having been very powerful for all these centuries, has studied all the other cultures and mapped them onto their own framework. So if we are different, it seems like it's our problem and we better mimic and better become like them. So school kids have a lot of pressure, peer pressure, to become less different. But this is being contested by many other people. It's being contested by Jewish Americans who want to wear their symbols, by Sikhs, by blacks, who want to have a strong positive identity in school, nowadays by Muslims in this country, by people of various backgrounds who want to remain different. And there's no reason why we as Indians and as Hindus cannot assert a certain identity with respect for other people also. So it's not disrespectful to be different. And this is something important for kids to know, that you're not any less American if you are Indian American. Because there's Irish American, there's Italian American, there's Hispanic Americans, there's Chinese American. And they're all American, fully American, patriotic, but they also haven't lost their sense of identity of who they are. And this, the opposite of this, of asserting difference, of being different, is what I call being digested. And being digested means that you cease to be who you are and you give up who you are in order to become part of the DNA or part of the basic structure of the society around you. You lose who you are. And there is both tendencies going on. A lot of our youth are being digested and they want to be digested. A lot of their parents are embarrassed and they want their kids to be digested. And I come across that, I come across both kinds of people. So these arguments on being different and being digested have shaped this book. Lots of discussions I've had with lots of people over time. So the benefit for young people is to become clearer on who we are and based on our ancestry, based on our ideas, Vedanta, Malvihar, the values we've learned, and being able to be very confident about it, being able to articulate it, being able to answer questions, being able to talk back, argue, as you get older, being stronger and stronger in doing that. Yesterday was a workshop with Hindu Student Association, and many of their questions were that when they leave home, and now they are living on their own in college, they are surrounded by a whole hostile kind of environment towards their identity, and they have to decide whether to just give up that identity because it's a liability. And few of them have the background and strength to respond and stay firm, but many of them will either become very private in their identity and gradually phase out, or very openly become even hostile towards it. So this issue of remaining different and claiming difference in a mutually respectful way with other people is, I think, very important part of our dharma. If you look at India's history of many kinds of people, many languages, cultures, many dharmas, many ways of life, spiritual, the idea of difference has been there very nicely preserved. And there hasn't been any effort that one group has to take over and control everybody and colonize them and force them to convert to their point of view. And so this is a nature. This is the way the ecosystem is. In my book, I have a section called Forest and Desert Civilizations. It says that certain civilizations came from the forest and certain civilizations came from the desert, Middle East desert. Our civilization is a forest civilization, full of descriptions about forest life, yogis and rishis living in forests, mountains, rivers, very fertile. So now in a forest, contrasted with the desert, forest is full of things. Desert has very few things, very simple. Forest is very complex. And there are a lot of differences between one thing and another in the forest. Many kinds of trees, many kinds of plants. If you ever take a microscope and you look at a little piece of dirt, you see little insects, little things moving. You see, so many kinds of plant and animal life all intertwined. So not only is there a lot of diversity and a lot of complexity, but there's interdependence. They're all interdependent. also there is change. You come back a few days later, it's rain, and therefore it looks different. New things have come out. You come back a year later, it's different. So the civilizations that are born in the forest have this kind of a quality of complexity, lot of diversity, interdependence, flux and change. If you go to a desert has few things, fairly static. You come back the next day, it's like the same it was. Basically sand and some rocks, so same. And there is less of this flux and less of this interdependency and less of this complexity. So I also described that this is part of our inner nature, having evolved in forest civilization, as opposed to Abrahamic religions which are from the desert. So to be different is very easy and natural for a forest dweller. The forest dweller says, I'm this kind of a creature and I live along with lots of others. And that's our ethos as Dharmic people.
So you described how the different religions have different systems of faith and describing whatever they believe in, but I have a question and then a follow-up based on what you say. Would you say that the goal of all of these different systems is the same, or is the goal fundamentally different as well?
Well, if you ask the faiths, if you ask what the faiths say, our goal is moksha, unity consciousness with Brahman. Christianity says the soul will live in heaven. The soul is not in God. There is no aham brahmasmi concept. So even after you die, the soul will live in heaven but separate from God. So that state, the final state that they want you to get into, is different than the final state we are talking about. Plus we are talking about moksha as something living. Moksha is not that you go to heaven or something, but jivan mukti is a state of a living enlightenment. Living enlightenment is a state not available in Christianity. So even if you look at the goals in a very general sense, you could say that there is a higher reality in both cases. And so both are promising a higher reality, which is happy. That much is the same. But when you start talking about the nature of what constitutes that higher reality, in their case it's a system of the soul separate from God, living in heaven. And one life, one chance to do it, no reincarnation. If you don't get saved, then it's eternal hell. Whereas we do not have the concept of an eternal hell. Because of reincarnation, no matter how bad a guy you are, you get more chances. In Thailand, they believe in Ramayana. They have a lot of Ramayana there, although they're Buddhists. So it's very interesting. I saw that in most of these Buddha temples, Buddha is inside, and outside the gate there is a huge Ravana. Huge Ravana standing there. And they think he's a good guy, and they say, we respect Ravana. So you ask the guy, why do you respect Ravana? You just told me this whole Ramayana story. Ravana is a bad guy. So what they're saying is that everybody gets another chance. So when Ravana dies, he repents and he says, I'd like to be born again to serve you, to compensate for all the bad things I did. So Ram is born, reincarnated again as Buddha, yeah? And Ravana is born again to serve Buddha and protect him. So Ravana is outside the door of Buddhist temple as the protector because he's a tough guy. Now he's going to defend and protect Buddha. So there's always another chance. There's always, in the reincarnation system, there's always another chance. That's the moral of the story. So the systems are different. The similarity is like you can say that an apple is the same as an orange because they both have vitamin C, they're round, they cost about, same amount of money, they grow on a tree, people can eat it. So yes, there are some similarities, but they're not the same because there's serious differences also. So the idea of a higher reality that we can both aspire for is the same. But the nature of what constitutes that higher reality and how you get there is not the same. What you get there, the state you are going to be in when you get there in Christianity is a different state than in the case of Hinduism. So in that sense, they're different. What's your follow-up question?
So I would say that given that, let's say the goals are a little bit different, is that cosmos, is it logical for there to be different
truths.
Yeah, like different truths.
Okay, so that's a very common question, and I'm very glad you asked, because I love to answer this question. So let's say there is a system A and there is a system B that don't agree, that don't match. So let's not call it truth, but call it truth claim. In science you have a truth claim, and somebody else has a different truth claim. Now truth claim means that it's the claim of a people. It's a claim of an experience. So what you have are incompatible truth claims. Yes, there can be only one truth, but there can be many truth claims. You see, not every truth claim is true. There are false truth claims. And then it's not necessarily that one truth claim is true and the other truth claim is false. It could also be that one truth claim is from a certain state of consciousness, where at that level of consciousness that seems to be the best truth you can have. And the other one is from a higher state of consciousness at which the truth claim is of a higher kind. So when you have competing, rival, contradictory truth claims, you cannot say because ultimately there is one truth, they both must be true. If all truth claims were valid, then Bin Laden's truth claim would also be valid, Ravana's truth claim would also be valid, the Asuras, Ravan had a dharma. Ravan had a dharma too. He thought he had a dharma. So he had a truth claim. You know, Duryodhana has truth claim. So all kinds of truth claims exist, but you have to, one of the things that we are endowed with is vivek, discrimination. So we are to be able to tell one from the other. And just because a truth claim has become popular, become famous, become powerful, become spread out, does not mean that it is true. I mean, if Hitler had won the war, then we would be having a certain kind of religion. And if Ravana had won, then we would be having a certain kind of universal belief. So, no matter how powerful, no matter how widespread, you have to take a truth claim and have the courage and confidence to analyze it and find out what your vivek, what your discrimination tells you about it. So when Adi Shankara debates Buddhists, one could say, well, you know, there can't be two truths, so they must be right and we must be right. But that's not how it is. Our whole tradition is on understanding the truth, and from our Siddhanta point of view, having the courage to falsify something else which we think does not fit. So that ability to falsify is what we call the Purva Paksha tradition, which is what all the teaching of Vedanta is based on. Is Purva Paksha, deconstruction, analyzing the other and giving a response to the other. And I do a lot of that in this book. I go back and forth and say, well, they'll say this and we'll say that, and they'll say this and we'll say that, to kind of show how far we can go, and then there is a trade-off to make.
First of all, it's a very eloquent speech here, and there's a lot of points you touched, you know, but bringing down to how we live in a day-to-day life, right? So being different versus being adaptable. Like, okay, I'm born in India, so my parents and my priests, whoever I work with, or what I experience when I go to temples and what I learn is what I am 15 years ago when I came here, right? So, but for 15 years I've been here, and now my horizon is wide open. You know, I was a frog in the well, as much as, you know, I hate to say that, but now once you come out, so you see different perspective of everything. You see what is truly being different, both spiritually as well as how you live your life and what your principles are. And to some extent, I cannot say that I am the same person as 15 years ago. I am adapted to something, you know, that I live here. So in essence, you know, you end up being more adaptable than, you know, being different. So, but in that process, what happens is, now right. So now you see, you know, what you were thinking before you see something different is changed.
Yes.
So like when how I feel, how I respect my elders, or how I talk to my elders, or you know, how I treat them, or how I touch their feet, and you know, in India, that gets diluted here. I mean, it's not that if I tell my son, you know, he's not going to feel the same way that I am feeling towards what I've been doing, you know, what I think was right, What
So
I
there's basically this adaptation to the American way, and how does difference play in that?
Right,
In that-
yeah.
Is
So
that the question?
Right,
Is that
then
right?
there is a fine line between if I tell my son you do this
Yeah.
versus like I used to do this in Indian circumstances.
Yes.
But there is some lesson in there, but
Yes.
you don't have to do the exactly same way.
Yes. So let me summarize the question and answer it. So we evolve when we come to this country because we become Americanized. Some of the old ways go away, and this trend continues more and more in every generation. And so, at what do we preserve? What do we compromise? Now, this is a very important question. There is a difference between Shruti and Smriti, and the Smritis are meant to be evolved and rewritten and changed over time. So we are not stuck in a dogma, in a kind of a canonized approach to religions like some other religions are, because we are not history-centric. Since they are history-centric, you can't modify it because it's based on history, you can't change that. So they are stuck in one canon. And Bible is a combination of Shruti and Smriti and Purana put together. We kept them separate. Yeah. So what you are evolving is the new Smriti out here. You are evolving the new customs out here. You are evolving the new body language, the new nuances, the new compliance with rules, regulations, laws, all of that is fine. It is fine from the American point of view because we are a hyphenated identity culture in this country, so you can keep your own hyphenated side also. But even from our tradition, even before coming to America, if you look at Dharma, the Dharma practiced in a wide range of places is diverse. So certain principles are to be preserved. So being different tells you what is non-negotiable about our traditions. What is non-negotiable? So if those principles are preserved, then I'm satisfied, I as one am satisfied if my kids or if anybody evolves in the other ways, very accommodating, very flexible, like we pick up new words, new languages, new lifestyles, fine. But there are certain principles which are our DNA. This is our DNA, and we must understand. The purpose of writing this book, as an American, as an Indian American, as somebody very patriotic American, proud American, also patriotic and proud Indian at the same time, is precisely to do this manthan and figure out what are the most critical things we must preserve, and then there are many things we can be flexible on. So it is to answer that question that I have written this book.
Rajiv will be selling the books also.